We are still waiting for one more member, but we have a quorum of 3, so I can call today's July 1 meeting of the Park and Recreation Committee to order. First item would be public comments or suggestions. Anybody have anything to say right off the bat? Very good. We need to, number 3 then would be to consider the minutes, from our June 3 meeting. Any suggestions, corrections, concerns? One thing I noticed is that Mr. Killian, who is with us today, asked our employee Kevin Fable a question about his father's employment, and I didn't see that in the minutes. I'm wondering, Tom, if you would like that to be included.
If the city finds it appropriate and relevant, then I think it should be.
It wasn't part of the decisions that we were making, and I think that's why it didn't get into the minutes. But if you feel it's a significant thing that should be on record, we can include it.
Yes, please. Typically, I've seen almost some summary of all comments in the record in city minutes historically.
Very good. So I would suggest that we go back to the tape and include a description of Mr. Killian's question to Mr. Fable and Mr. Fable's response. We have a minute, a motion to approve on that basis.
With that addition?
With that addition.
I'll make that motion.
I will second
Look at
it.
you. Counting on you for that second.
I will second it, yes.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Very good. Thank you for that. We're going to launch right into the discussion of possible action regarding recommendations for further soil testing in Riverside Park. I have a few remarks to get us going, but I got here early today with 5 wooden stakes, or 6 of them, and just so that we would have a visual of what kind of proposal we'd be looking at, I drove a stake approximately below where that culvert is. I couldn't tell with all the vegetation, but just kind of to use that spot as an example. Then I went out 50 feet and put 2 more stakes, and I went out a total of 100 feet and put in 3 stakes. So we have kind of a fan-shaped test area that we could look at if we choose to take that approach. That would give us 6 samples instead of 20, like Mr. Wausau suggested, and so the committee needs to decide whether they feel that is enough. I guess most of us were disappointed Mr. Lassa can't be with us on these Monday meetings. I called him today and clarified. I wasn't sure that there was a recommendation in his Phase 1 environmental assessment. There was an interpretation that there was a recommendation that we just wait and not to do anything. And he confirmed that that was his intention, that at the time he prepared that, and he still believes that we don't need to do any testing, that we should just wait until Walico's test results are in, and then decide where we want to go from there. And have a seat, David. Thank you. Anyway, I asked him what areas of the park he was proposing to test, because he didn't include a map. It was kind of a preliminary proposal, and we didn't want to nail him down as to the precise locations. But he said that there would be, in his proposal, he would recommend at least 1 test in the area of the former tannery, but almost all of the other ones would be on the south end of the park, where we're more certain there's contamination. I asked him why 20, and he kind of said, well, you wanted to test it, so that's, that would really do a job for you. I did like his idea of combining, if you're going to a spot, do the surface soil sample and the subsurface sample from the same spot, and just, get it done, boom, punch it. Because I had been kind of thinking that we might be better off to wait with all of our surface soil sampling until after Wausau's results were in, and that would mean that we would just do the subsurface. But if we're going to have somebody do subsurface in the area that we're concerned about, I guess it would make sense to also do the surface at the same time, in the same spot, basically, similar equipment. Anyway, I asked him if we would like him to come in the future to one of our meetings. If that was possible, he can't make it, he has a prior commitment on Mondays. And I asked him if he could designate somebody to come and interact with us as a representative of REI, and he said that he could, but they wouldn't be, obviously they wouldn't know as much as he does, because he's the one who's been doing this work. So that was that discussion. I wanted to share it with everybody. Anybody have any other thoughts before we take a walk? I think we should go down there and look to see the area we're talking about. Maybe somebody else can point us to where that culvert is actually located. But I've got that fan-shaped possible testing spots staked out, and we can look at it. Yes?
May I or we just bring up one point that I think is significant prior to starting the walk, and if it pleases the committee, we might be able to stop in this area on the way over toward the southern portion of the park. Just one point about the phase 1 assessment. May I bring these pictures up?
Sure. Would it be better just to show them to us out there?
Well, I mean,
Well, I think I'm not sure the video recording is
He's
going
going to be
on.
with us, but come on, you can do it now. Fine.
yes, I mean, and I don't know on your computers if you have REI's phase 1 assessment available, but on page 48 of the phase 1 assessment begins the photos that REI took of the park, and they did a walk around and took some extensive photos. Now, and maybe Mr. Lindman can confirm since REI is not here, but on the northern portion of the park, just to the west at the 3M fence there, west of that fence on 3M, that is where there had been some significant petroleum contamination, correct, on the 3M site. I believe there were 2 areas. Does that sound...
I don't exactly know where they're at off the top of my head,
Okay,
but yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
So essentially in DNR documents, you will find that there were 2 areas on the 3M property that had significant petroleum contamination, and then some other areas with some other contaminants. But I think what's important today, since we'll be out there, is that 3M had 2 outfall signs listed. I don't know if, can you explain just briefly what an outfall is, Mr. Lindman?
An outfall like a stormwater outfall, or what kind of outfall?
Well, I think that's a very good question. So in REI's phase 1, you'll see in the photos that near the western border of the park, that for some reason the outfall sign that had been there for quite some time was no longer present in the photos from REI. Now, this was taken October 27th of 2018, and you can see along the border of the park the outfall sign there. If you could please pass that around. Now, what you would notice, and what we can still see present today, is below the outfall sign there was an outfall pipe, and that is in that photo there. So it's possible that in the 1,400 plus pages of REI's assessment, maybe somewhere they mentioned 3M outfall that discharged directly into Riverside Park, but I did not see that in there. And so I think, one, let's find out when was that sign removed, and maybe it was a storm and the wind blew it over. So when was the sign removed? Who removed it? And then if we could examine where that outfall pipe is, then I think we could interface with the DNR and find out precisely what was coming out of that outfall pipe and discharging directly into Riverside Park. The one reason I thought it was important to bring up tonight is all the testing that's being talked about is on the southern end of the park, which would relate more to the dioxin samples that had been taken there. This would relate possibly more to what had happened on 3M's side and what may have been discharged into the park. Thanks.
Very good. Anything else before we take a short walk? Very good.
Get him up. Move out. Yeah. How are you today, David?
Oh, horrifically busy.
Well, glad you could make it.
First I went to the wrong location.
Oh, you're not downtown?
I would have been on time, because I'm not working on time.
Oh, well.
I had read it, even when the minutes, or when the agenda first came out, I had read where it was going to be located.
Yeah.
My
Hard to...
future cabin here.
Yeah. Where do you want to stop?
Well, it's right over there, Mr. Peckham, so we could go over
Like at the
there.
end of the parking lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you're feeling courageous to jump in some brush there, but...
I don't know if I feel the need.
Oh, well,
I already went up the side looking for that culvert, so I have to do a kick check later. It's that concrete structure you
I remember
saw.
when this was growing. This is a, come in one and go out that.
Got things up here.
yes, apparently, feel like going in this. Well,
I don't see it.
we'll have to see. It's kind of hard to rush. Should be able to get it clear.
Get eaten by a bear, Tom. I'm a bushwhacker. Yeah, you know what's on behind Hey, Tom? I think that's it right there.
I thought he was straight up.
Oh, yes, you're correct, Mr. Peckham.
Dennis? Dennis? Right up there. Okay. Rabbit trails.
With an outfall sign, but in the last several months, that sign seems to have
What was the sign? Where's that, Tom?
directly above the outfall.
Okay.
Yes, so
We can inquire about that.
it was in one of the photos, so I think just because it's a direct discharge, you might want to figure out what 3M was discharging.
Okay.
I'm in. I'm over here.
We're done. We done see it. Intrepid City Council. Go right Get Blaine over here. We got some buckthorn. Let's go. There's a little Gary. There's a little concrete C-shaped thing with some rocks below it and a pipe. So they've got runoff or
The pipe
something
is still
coming out
there,
of there.
but the sign has been removed.
That's
Okay.
the question.
But where is that location on this whole thing? The other picture.
We should ask
Oh, it's the
first
same.
what, you know,
same
if
one.
it's just
Then
Then
ground
it's this one right here.
surface water. I don't know. At one of our monitoring wells.
Oh, yeah.
This is one of the monitoring wells that goes down and they take the groundwater samples from sites like that. That's the only one I saw, but there should be some down here too. I think there's one over by that big pine tree. I think I remember seeing one over there. I'm surprised they got them this far up.
We've ridden this trail from about there.
That's true. But the plume of groundwater starting there is going this way. It's not coming this way.
Out there at Thomas Street.
Yeah, if 3M's, that's, you know, the wild card. Hi, Mr. Brandt. How are you?
That bike polo park used to be on this side.
Pardon?
The bike polo park used to be on this side, closer to the trail.
I think that's where it was. I'll explain it whenever we get here.
I want to get your opinion on something after the meeting and we're off the record.
Okay. Huddle up here, will you? Committee all here? Where's Gary? Gary! Okay, so I don't have a precise fix on where that outfall is, but it's in there someplace in the undergrowth. And so I just, for a kind of an example, put the stake in there as if that was the point of the outfall, and there's also a spot down here where the soil test was taken, where the Department of Health Services found the exceedance in dioxin or whatever else. And so just kind of, you know, I like to have an idea of what the heck I might be doing. So I paced off from there. The first stake is 50 feet and the second stake is 100 feet. So if we wanted to just do this part of the park to see what we get, we could do that with 6 tests instead of 20. And my thinking is that if, I'm assuming that it's going to be the most severe right there, and that it's going to become less as you move away from there, but I don't know that. So if we did tests at 50 feet and 100 feet, or distances like that of the committee's choice, we could find out what's happening with the concentration of the contaminant, and then we would know whether we need to, go another 50 or 100 feet or whatever. So that was just food for thought. Anybody have any questions or?
So then what about over there then? Where we
Well, the committee will have to decide whether we want to, do some testing there as well.
Because that might be, how will we know whatever was coming out of that pipe?
I guess I would want to know if Ken Lassa recommends that we look into that, because you asked who's going to tell the truth about this, and I think that our consultant would give us accurate information. If
that can ever be determined.
Yeah. When I spoke to Mr. Lassa today, I asked him about the 20 borings, and each boring would yield 2 tests, the surface and the subsurface. And so he was saying that the actual testing would be about $1,000 a pop for every test we ran. And I'm glad Eric is here, because one of the tests he proposed that I really don't know if is practical, but he suggested that we take groundwater when we do the borings. We take groundwater from that hole and test that. But I don't know where they're going to hit it. If they test at about 4 feet, guessing, they're not going to hit groundwater here, are they?
No, we could have them push till they hit groundwater. I don't know how far down it is. We can check these monitoring wells, But
Okay,
it
so
might
that's
only be
another
10, 12
decision
feet
for the
down.
committee. Go ahead.
Mr. Peckham, do you know how deep the surface soil tests and the subsurface soil tests will be? Do you know what the depth of each will be? Like all the surface?
He specified that the surface soil would be at about 3 inches, but he didn't specify in his recommendation to us how deep he would go with the other one. I would imagine there's some engineering world recommendations on how deep you go.
They would take a representative sample for the depth that they go below surface. So, if they went down 6-8 feet, they would take, samples from the different levels.
I know I've been told, and whether or not it's true, but I've been advised that if they go too deep, it's not as positive as, you can go too deep on subsurface test. If you go too deep, you're missing a lot. So I was just wondering what the level was.
Yeah, that's typically why they'll take sections, for the first couple feet they'll take a sample. It'll be a representative sample of the entire boring, so then they'll just sample that.
Oh, are you saying it's a composite?
Correct.
Oh, we would not want to do a composite sample on these at all. We want to know, if you're suggesting that it's a composite, where the depths are actually combined and then
Yes.
and then analyzed? No.
Because there'd only be one test on the subsurface.
Right.
You're saying you want them every couple feet.
I am okay on the surface depths. According to even the state toxicologist, they had specified, a couple inches, 2 to 3 inches, what have you, right, for surface.
The dioxins would be standalone though. So that surface 0 to 3 inches would be taken for the dioxin. And then our subsurface though would be the composite. We'd take samples of every couple feet.
But not of the dioxin.
No, dioxins would be standalone. Just
If you took it at 4 feet, then people are going to say, well, maybe it was at 3 or maybe it was at 5. So I think the, taking the cylinder of, maybe 3 feet to 6 feet or something, take that cylinder, pour it in a bucket, stir it up and test it, I think you'd be in pretty good shape.
Well, I mean, just bringing up raw documentation, the sample that did exceed in this park, do you recall at what depth that sample was taken?
Nope.
I'd say 6 to 8 inches, right? So I would guess that the whole goal of this pursuit is not to just do broad testing, but to identify areas that may be more contaminated than others. Given we already have a sample that exceeded at 6 to 8 inches, wouldn't the logical depth to test, if you're looking for contamination, be at the depth that we already know there was contamination which exceeded state levels? So I guess if it's going to be kind of a guess and check process, would it make sense to start with the depth we already know had exceedances?
I don't know. I'm a layman. Yes, sir.
Should we just, the park committee, just meet with Mr. Lassa at his convenience? You know, I think there's just a lot of questions that we have of him and whatever, and have a special meeting with Mr. Lassa so that we can have some of these further understandings of what REI is attempting to accomplish here.
I would be amenable to that.
I think that we just need to move, you know, I think we need to make progress, but, you know, what about, you know, were there other things coming over this bank that we don't know about? I don't know that. And maybe he's confident of the markings we have now, but, you know, I need to know more about the northern site.
Okay.
And Mr. Beckham, one last thing on these topics. The city was provided with video documentation right there of runoff coming directly from 3M in significant quantities and coming into this park and ponding right there. Now, when the ponding dried up, it also left discoloration on the foliage. So while we did not submit the results to the DNR, there was no requirement to do so because there was no state exceedance. We've already taken samples around the neighborhood and in that spot in the park at the same depth, roughly 4 inches. And that depth over there, where the water ponded, the arsenic level was roughly 3 times what we found at the same depth in other areas of the neighborhood. Now, that was not an exceedance, but it was rather high and it was close to an exceedance. We'll provide the city with that data, but the question for REI would be, if the sample we took at roughly 4 inches was close to an exceedance, if there was heavy metal deposition from runoff, would it be more likely that those levels would be higher at a deeper depth or at a more shallow depth? And depending on what Mr. Lassa says, perhaps we could figure out if there are any heavy metal exceedances. And the benefit of doing numerous tests, we've never been able to develop background values for this neighborhood for heavy metals. The DNR has a process. I believe you need roughly 10 samples to come up with a background value we could use. If we even had those 10 samples of heavy metals, we could actually have background values in this neighborhood, which is an environmental justice neighborhood, and we would know what we're actually dealing with. The DNR otherwise uses very inflated numbers from the USGS heavy metal study, which aren't representative of this neighborhood. So that would also be
I think we're going to have those representative numbers for background when Waleco gets through with its comparison, because they're being very careful that they want to have test results from south of here and north of here and west of here so that they can compare those to the area where the aerial deposition took place. So I think we're going to have the surface soil background.
And my understanding is they will not be testing for anything but dioxins, and the people had urged the DNR to also include other possible contaminants because they were burning 400 tons per month at the old Crestline factory for years, which would, generate more than just dioxin. So while we requested that from the DNR, they would not accommodate that.
Eric, is there a possibility that they could take the boring and test at a certain level and run the test on that, but save those other samples for possible future testing?
Yep, we did the same thing up on Thomas Street, just in case we did get an exceedance somewhere.
So we'd have all of the samples, and if one of them spiked, we could say, okay, give me 2 feet there and 6 feet there.
Right. Yep.
Okay. Because I'm not eager to go to the city council and ask for $77,000 to do this, so.
If you can spend $4.7 million on a water park, is there a reason we couldn't spend sufficient funds in a low-income neighborhood with disproportionate numbers of people of color to make sure that the community is finally safe? The city received these results 13 years ago and did nothing with them, even knowing there were state exceedances. It's not the time to be frugal in this type of situation, in my humble opinion, sir.
Well, we've got 2 state toxicologists with doctorate level degrees. Both of them said there is no unreasonable risk to us standing here or somebody coming down here and playing 100 times over the summer.
Mr.
So
Peckham, didn't they have one sample that was 13 years old?
that's why we're here, because there's only one sample.
You can't base an accurate opinion on a 13-year-old one sample for a park.
Which is why we're here.
And I think it would be good if finally the city told the people and the media, and let's get Matt Thompson from the DNR on the line too, and have the DNR express it. You know, the toxicological opinion, that is based on DHS opinions, okay? It is not a regulatory perspective. If you want to know what the acceptable cancer risk is in soil in a non-industrial environment, that's called Wisconsin Soil Cleanup Standards. It is black and white. These samples here and several there on River Street, on Emter Street, those exceeded state dioxin soil standards for a residential environment. That issue, from a regulatory perspective, it is what it is, and that is Chapter NR 720, if you would like to read it, sir. It's in the state statutes.
Any other questions while we're here? We can go back.
Okay.
Thank you.
We is all here again. Thank you for taking the walk. There was a suggestion as we walked to possibly have a special meeting when we could have Mr. Wausau in the room, and maybe also solicit additional information from the DNR hydrologist as well. Want to pursue that, or ready to go another direction?
No, like I said out there, I think that's our next step. I certainly don't want to wait till another committee meeting next month. You know, hopefully this can be done in July, because I think we just have to move on it.
I apologize for interrupting. Can we get hold of Ken Lassen and get something scheduled so we can answer everybody's questions? Get it out there in the open so everybody knows what's going on.
No.
Let's get something scheduled in July. If need be, I'll call. Because this way we'll get it done as far as a special meeting.
There's a motion by Gisselman to try to arrange a special meeting when Mr. Lassen comes in.
Yes.
Okay, is there anything else you want, Dennis?
Yeah, I want to say one thing. We need to talk to the people that are concerned about this, and we have to find out, what do you people want?
Yeah.
What will make you happy? Because we can test this, and it'll take longer than it took Eisenhower to plan the invasion of Normandy, and we'll get nowhere. So we need you people to either put down on paper or tell us right now exactly what you're looking for. This is about Riverside Park. Now we've morphed into the neighborhood and so on. Can't do both. Let's stick with Riverside Park right now, and let's deal with that problem. So I need to know from you people what is going to make you comfortable. You seem to be uncomfortable with the testing from Maliko, and I'll tell you, I'm not totally comfortable either. I don't like the cozy relationship between Maliko and the people who are doing the testing. That kind of bothers me. It's kind of like having your brother-in-law be the judge when you're up for some kind of offense. You might get a little favoritism there. But what we need to know is what do we have to do to satisfy your concerns, so you say, hey, I think they've done everything they can, here's the results, we're just gonna have to accept it, that's the way it is. So, what is it you're looking for? Do you wanna put that in paper and, you know, you can email it to me and I'll share it with the other people, or you can email it to Pat, he's the chairman of the committee, and let us know exactly what you're looking for. I mean, we can test and test and test and test, you know, from here to eternity. And, you know, it may not always satisfy people, but eventually we have to close this chapter out, do what we possibly can as close as to what you need, and then we need to put this thing to bed. We have meeting after meeting after meeting, and I'm already 73 years old. I don't want to pass away before we come to a decision on this. We want a few more years.
Okay.
Well, as I said before, and just carrying on with what Mr. Smith is saying, you know, we've known, we have known, the city has known about this for these years. I think it's time that we get this fixed, and let's get the information that we need.
Figure it out.
Well, I asked at the last meeting, what does fixed mean? Fixed either means do nothing, or we pave it over and make a great big parking lot, or we raise the ground level by a foot with more soil. What does fixed mean? Or we close it? You know, those are the options.
Until we know the results.
We've heard scientists say that you could roll around it and eat it for multiple times, and no one does that, and there's no problem, no harm. So, you know, I've been in this park all of my life, 60 plus years, and here I sit.
Ms. Gillian?
Tom has the ability to be more specific than I do, but for the question you asked, it feels to me as though there are known areas of contamination, of severe contamination in the park. There's possibly the outfall, there's the culvert, there's the oil contamination, there's the potential dioxin contamination. I understand that Waleco's testing was going to be in an area that had already been disrupted and was not going to be, how can you get accurate dioxin testing there? Okay? And what are they telling us? That when the wind blows from Waleco, from those stats, that it just blows to that one area? Or does, I live there. The wind blows this way. I watched the crap coming out of 3M smokestacks, okay? Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes that way, sometimes it's going directly this way, sometimes it's going right across my home. So I don't believe that the wind from Waleco blew in that one direction and that's adequate testing. I think it should be tested by the outfall. We need to know what came out of there. It needs to be tested by the culvert. And like you've said at many meetings, it runs downhill. So obviously that rain and that water flows toward the river. I think Mr. Loss's saying that we need 20 tests is not inappropriate. I think that, and I think we need to discuss with him. We need to have a personal discussion with him, because when you say that Mr. Lassa indicated that he can't be here and he's not going to send somebody because they're not going to know as much as he does, that gives us nothing.
He said he would send somebody, but, you know,
he wouldn't have
the same knowledge.
Right, but it feels to me as though Mr. Lassa and Mr. Milky's correct, that meeting needs to be set up with Mr. Lassa, so questions can be asked of him and things can be clarified. I don't know if he knows about the outfall. If that sign was down and there were no pictures from him about the outfall, does he even know about the outfall? Was that something that they even considered in their phase 1 study? Those are all significant issues, and Mr. Peckham, I'm not trying to be difficult. I care about myself, I care about the people in this neighborhood. And those are my concerns, and that's what I think needs to be done.
I think we have a motion to attempt to set up a meeting when Mr. Lassa can join us and request from Citizens for Clean Wausau a statement of their desires for how you'd like this to turn out.
I think that motion to say that we will set up a meeting with them.
Will set up.
Well,
he,
can a teleconference be set up if he's not physically able to be here?
Come on, unless this guy's a quadriplegic, he can be here.
Where is he from?
I don't know, he works in Wausau. He works in Wausau.
He has some other
He
place
sticks in this
that he
dimension,
needs to
I
be
think.
This
all
time.
right.
He's asking us to set the park with $71,000. I think if I had he can show up for $71,000.
I didn't know where he was coming from.
You know, I would like to address Mr. Smith's question briefly because I feel they're important, and I understand that this has to be time constrained in some way, and we had hoped it would be. I think we all recall when you initially had pursued, doing more testing in the park, and we were all for an expedient process. It did not occur, but on the other side of that coin, I will note that, what has occurred in this neighborhood for decades now, which has been shown, not from just Waleco, Crestline, S&E, Century Insurance, or whatever they'd like to call themselves these days, but also from 3M Company, from Connor Forest Industries. Now, the city had deep and extensive research on Connor Forest Industries. It did not disclose that to the public. Now, I will say about our citizens group, not to pat ourselves on the back, but to show what a utility we have been to this committee, that if we had not brought our research forth, the DNR would have not required an air deposition study from Waleco for burning 400 tons of waste per month. Had we not brought our research to this committee, and frankly, not only corrected the REI Phase 1 assessment today, that may seem like a small omission when you pay someone a large sum of money to do a Phase 1 assessment, and they just don't realize that there was a direct discharge into this park for possibly decades. I'd call that more than just a small oversight. Okay, we had to correct their work on the Connor Forest Industries Phase 1 study. We had to correct it today. I cannot speak for the group without going back to them and getting the majority opinion, but I think it would be productive, not only for the people, but for the city, if we brought forth our research, DNR research. We will surgically detail the contaminants that have just been west of this park fence, and you will know what might be viable to test for. But I will close by saying, if the city thinks this is going to be a quick process just to wrap this up, this neighborhood is residential. It was before 3M moved there in 1929. By 1938, the mayor of Wausau said it was a mistake to allow them in a residential neighborhood. So yes, thank you very much for pursuing more testing 13 years after you should have the first time. But unless this neighborhood's concerns environmentally are dealt with comprehensively and continually, if you're going to allow major polluters to be in a residential neighborhood, you can expect a very long process. So thank you for pursuing this, but it was not citizens that made this mess. It has been citizens that have spent a lot of time and money trying to help their hometown, and we should not be indicted for it for causing a delay. So thank you. Let's get this done. Let's do it thoroughly, and let's find professionals who can actually be accurate and not make any more mess-ups. Thank you.
Your questions have been answered.
Can you give us a statement in a week, 10 days?
I believe that would be possible.
Very good.
Would you be prepared when we set this meeting up with this gentleman, would you be prepared to do a presentation also?
That's not historically been allowed by the city. Our group had asked once in the past if the city would like our involvement. I can ask the group, and I think we'd be happy to be involved and try to provide any data gaps, try to fill in any data gaps which may exist. If Mr. Lindman supports that, if the mayor supports that, but historically that has not been welcomed.
Well, I think extraordinary times require extraordinary measures. If this is going to help solve this thing, I don't know if we'll have to look in the Roberts rules. I don't know if we're violating anything by having a citizen or citizens group or one citizen present something from a group setting. if this other gentleman's gonna present his side, we need to get together on this. Like I said, right now we've got to deal with Riverside Park, and then if we have to move into the neighborhoods, we can move into the neighborhoods, but let's eat this elephant one bite at a time. You know, and Riverside will be the first bite, and we can move on.
Yeah. We're the Park and Rec Committee, so we can deal with this property and go from there. Any more on this committee? All those in favor of the motion, I think.
I don't think we have a
understand.
second.
Yes, pardon?
We didn't have a second.
Are you seconding?
What was the motion?
Motion is to arrange a meeting as soon as possible with Mr. Alassa and request a summary of the goals and desires of the citizens for Clean Wausau to be complicit or involved in the discussion. Motion and a second. Anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
Like we've had resolution, but we're getting there. I think we are making some progress. Okay, we can swing right into educational items. I think it's going to be the Jamie Polly show from here on out.
I don't know about that.
Or perhaps the Karen Powers
Yes.
outdoor pools.
Yes, I'm actually going to have Karen.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are. Good to see you. Yeah. Do you want to come up to the table, you should if you want? I'll have, it's not on your list of educational items because we didn't specifically, but it is an update on, we were requested by Mr. Peckham to include an update tonight on the pools and the events we have coming up and the events we've done so far and the free days.
Yeah, in your packet, there's breakdown of the different activities that have been held so far. We had free days so far at Kaiser Memorial in Schulenburg that yielded over 1,300 swimmers. We've had the different free days on Sundays through the month that you can follow. We had our open house party, which again was over 1,000 people between the three pools that came out. And that was sponsored by Marshfield Clinic and Security Health Plan as part of our Active Family Challenge and their commitment to the community, and they want to do it again next year. We had a wacky Olympics. We're trying little events at each pool now to just kind of specialize that pool. Schulenburg has lap lanes, so we had a wacky Olympics this afternoon and had 4 teams come in and race. And they had been people who had not been at the pool before, so they were discovering the pool for the first time. And we have a flyer in here which outlines some of the other just little, again, wacky things like National Mac and Cheese Taste Testing Day, a teen party with the DJ that we'll be having at Kaiser Pool. We also have Ice Cream Truck Day on National Ice Cream Day. We are allowing a truck to come into the park to serve ice cream to the kids. And we have a Disney theme pool day coming up. And in August 2nd, the Dog Days is actually for the Humane Society. Donation to the Humane Society would get them into the pool for free. Then we also have Library Days, which is later in the month. We'll have one more free day at the end of the season for each pool. And
Dog days at the pool?
we will have Dog Day. Hopefully, I just put in the variance request to the health department. Now you are required to do a variance on the state code in order to have dogs in the pools. So that was a 12-page document that went into the health department today with photos and stuff. The water will not be turned on, filters will not be turned on when and it's after the season is done.
Oh, okay.
So the pool will be drained immediately afterwards.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can bring your dog if that gets approved.
If that gets approved, the dogs can go in the water, the humans cannot. Not even up to their ankles. In fact, if someone comes in swimwear, they'll be turned away.
Be fed to the dogs.
The dogs have to be show proof of their vaccinations. I'm sorry, what?
You said they'll be fed to the dogs.
They'll be fed to the dogs. I don't think we'll go that far. Most of the dogs that come are pretty well fed and cared for, so.
Dogs must not come in pools, even swimwear, is that what you're saying?
That's right, that too.
I think this is a really good array of events, and next year, learn from this and go. I think it's good.
So Karen and Christian are also doing a very good job getting this stuff out on Facebook and getting it out at the pools. We'll have these flyers up so that the people know about it and trying to get as many media outlets to help us advertise as we can.
Our pool party that was held with Marshfield Clinic and Security Health Plan, photos from that, and the docs that are on, we had doctors on deck, and answering questions about healthcare and skincare, giving out free t-shirts and hats. Their pictures went out to all of Marshfield Clinic's clients through their newsletter. Also, there's thousands of employees that went out in their employee newsletter as well. Pictures from our pools, pictures from their program, celebrating the activities. So it was good promotion for the city of Wausau. It was good promotion for the pools. It was a good partnership.
Very good.
Is there any other social media option besides Facebook that these announcements can go out?
We have yet to join Twitter or Instagram. Those are two other elements that are out there. And there's a way to link them through a third support system that you send to one and it goes to all. But it's the management of it, keeping up with them, making sure everything's current and up to date.
We also have it on our website, the
Yep.
city website, and as an announcement on the city. Some folks subscribe to the Parks Rec Reports Department in the announcement, then they get that notice.
It was recently brought to my attention that Facebook is for old people now. So I'm just wondering if it's...
Just to let you know, one thing that we've been trying to do for several years now, probably going into 2021 as far as that budget, is to try to get a social media coordinator, marketing type professional to answer any department, any question, whatever, and more importantly, get the right information out to social media, because we know how accurate at times it isn't. So.
Very good.
You have questions, comments on pools?
Thank you.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you.
Bike share?
Oh yeah, going back to the educational
Rip
items,
through
just
your
wanted
list.
to... What?
Just rip through your...
Yep, we'll go quickly. We are going to be working to launch a bike share program. So this is something that was donated. There was $36,000 donated by the Community Foundation of North Central Wisconsin to fund 10 bikes through this bike share program as part of the River Life Development and the sponsorship program. So we will have 2 sets of 5. We will have a set of 5 up by the park itself. We have an area just north of the building that there will be, and then 5 more will be situated somewhere on the south side of the River's Edge Trail, or south. Possibly, yeah, that was one area we're looking at. So we still have to identify exactly where that second thing will be, or second rack will be. But we hope to, they're still working through the final agreements between Zagster and the city, and Jacobson has those in her hands, and we're almost done. But it looks like the bikes will be here at the beginning of August, and they'll be up and running. They will be available year-round as of right now, and there is a program that we can either go online, or there's an app that you can put on your phone, and you can either buy a membership for $60 a year or $10 a month, or pick or choose depending on when you're going to ride, or it's $1 for every 15 minutes that you want to ride. And it's something that a lot of cities have. This particular organization has these programs in Wisconsin Rapids is one, and I have to look at the proposal now to see the other one. There's a couple in Wisconsin that they have. We did do reference checks on them as well. But that's something that will be uniquely added that we don't have, and we're going to test it first with the 10 bikes. If it's something that's very well received, then there may be more stations put out throughout the city. These bikes will be tracked. The app is linked to the program that they will give us access to. We will be able to track the amount of revenue that we're getting from. There's a share of the revenue that comes to the city for this program. We'll be able to track usage. We'll be able to see if a bike is down and why it's not. And then there's a turnaround time where they have to get the bike back functional. They'll have a couple part-time people working on that. And it's got a lot of, we'll be able to track where people are riding them. Most likely it'll mainly be the downtown area because they got to put them back on the dock when they're done. But we'll be able to track a lot of information from these bikes.
We were just in Chicago and took a look at the map where these bike stations are. It's like it was a storm cloud over the entire city. It's incredible. And it was quite popular. I saw the River's Edge Trail. That looks amazing.
So we started out going with the rack system. There's different, you can do the rack system or the rackless system. In the research that Brad Sipple, who works in our planning department, has done, he's been kind of the main person behind getting this together. he did a lot of research, and right now the bikeless or the rackless bikes have a little bit more of issues because basically people ride them and they drop them wherever, and there's no, they could be, you know, they run out of juice and then they just end up anywhere in the city and they're a little bit harder to manage. So the rack system has been proven to be a little bit more reliable, and just people know where to find them, they know where to get them. And
So they keep charging until the rack bike is restored to the rack.
yeah, well, they're pedal bikes, so they're not actually e-bikes, so they don't need to charge, but they'll be
I meant
locked.
they keep costing more money charging that to their,
Yes, yes,
until they're racked.
right, yep. Yep. Any questions on that one? All right, going on to the rest of the program update. Dog Park Committee is going to meet right after this meeting. Mr. Neal is not here, but the group is still going to move forward. They did get an anonymous donation of $15,000 that the person would like to go towards the fence. So I think the group will be discussing that after this to say, let's get the fence up in order. We got some updated costs on there. They are looking at updated cost list too. We got a nice quote from TJ with the city's engineering department on what it might cost to put water to the site. So we got a better idea of what that cost will be. So they're going to be talking about that and some other fundraising ideas. They all divvied up at the last meeting a list of 50 different organizations who donate money to causes like this. Plus they came up with a whole bunch more that they added. They divvied up that list between the group, and then over this last month they were supposed to start making contact. So we'll get an update from them as to if they've made any more progress on any more funding. So that's where they're at. Program updates, as you all know, we've got Wausau Events is up and running and basically dominating our park system for the summer with their concerts on the square, the marketplace, the Balloon Fest is coming up, Chalk Fest is coming up, so we're working with them very regularly to get the parks ready, help them organize, set up, that sort of thing. And then regular shelter rentals. Any questions on program? Project update. So we've got a lot of things going on with playgrounds this year. The regular playground replacement that is funded through the CIP will include Schofield and Pleasant Prairie Park. So those are currently out for RFP. The RFPs come back, I think July 18th is when they come back. We do have an additional $20,000 donation to Pleasant Prairie Playground from...
Pleasant View, right?
Oh, yes. That is not, yeah, Pleasant View.
I was trying to figure out where Pleasant Prairie was.
Pleasant Prairie is in southern Wisconsin.
Yeah, almost out of state.
That was a misprint on my part, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yeah, Pleasant View Park, so I met with the donator. I think they'll want to be recognized when we get closer to that. That will add some additional younger age pieces to that park that they're looking at.
So the donor for Pleasant View?
The donor is for Pleasant View Park.
Okay.
Yep. And then the Brockmeyer Park playground, as if you've gone past there, is already gone. It's been taken down. And then JoJo's Jungle, we will be scheduling next week. I have a meeting with Myron and Patrick Horter to schedule a groundbreaking event, which everybody will be invited to, as well as the mayor will be invited and wanted to be part of that. That we will then start excavation on the park and construction on the park. July 15th, I believe, is the date that they have currently set to start breaking ground on that park. So that's moving. Oak Island is also a playground that we'll be replacing this summer through the Community Development Block Grant Fund that we've got. So that's also out for RFP until July 18th. One thing I wanted to add is we've always been asking questions, what do we do with our playgrounds? And most of the time we save certain pieces of the playground for parts for other pieces, and then other times they go into the recycling bin. But we did find an organization called Kids Around the World. I encourage you to look at their website. It's very moving, but they take playgrounds and they refurbish them and then they place them in areas of the world, all over the world, including the United States, where there are poverty-stricken areas that don't have the ability to install playgrounds. They took Brockmeyer already, no cost to them. one of our issues is we cannot sell our playgrounds because the liability will always remain with the city, even if we sell it to a different community. But it does not, when it goes to an organization like this, the liability is gone. Yeah. So in order, we felt this was an organization that was worthwhile versus throwing it in the garbage, but do you have any other thoughts? So we plan to start using them regularly. We are doing a little bit of an update when it gets into Schofield Park. We have some boat launch reconstruction, but also an update on the river cleanup, just so you know. I believe the city council last meeting approved a fund transfer or a budget amendment from a fund that was set aside for the river cleanup and the river walkway. Marianne had a fund, and that's helping us with added costs that we're finding can help to repair the boat launches more than what we thought. Now that the river's down, we found more issues with Schofield and Gilbert, and so that fund will help us now get those done while the water's down and completed. We had funds set aside for them, but with the additional issues we found, we were able to complete them all now. And then also with the river cleanup, I know that Greg Fricks, our operations manager, has also already been in contact with Rick for Public Works, and we're going to be working with them and trying to get some contractors in to help with cleanup of especially the Barker Stewart Island Bridge. It's something we've done in the past, even when the water was high, but they will be getting kind of an arm in there to help take out that debris, and then they'll be taking that off. We don't have a set physical date yet set for all that, or a really plan in place, but it's already been in discussions. We have until the end of the year to clean up the river, or until the ice comes in, but the river will not be put back up until the first of the year, or maybe next spring. I think they're pretty behind schedule. So we've got time to clean it up. There is also a group from the Golden Sands Conservation.
RC&D.
Yeah, they are, one of the gentlemen that works for them helped organize for when the Wausau was down. He's also organizing with a lot of area service groups. I know the Rotary Club's been contacted and a number of other ones to do a day of cleanup on August 24th on the river, cleaning up the shorelines and anything they can get out as far as debris. We will be setting up and working with them closely on setting up dump spots where they can bring all the debris, both in Schofield Park and in Gilbert Park, and possibly one maybe down closer to River Drive area. That one's a little bit unknown yet because we don't know exactly where to put them. That won't be right in the middle of downtown. But we provided that for them when they did Lake Wausau, and then we will take all that debris and either recycle it, take it to the proper landfill, or take it to our, if it's wood, we have a wood plot. So we're working to coordinate that, and that'll be a big cleanup day, as well as the bridge. And then other things we have in mind is just to try to take out any stumps that might be really high, working with the DNR, cutting them a little bit lower. We can't remove them completely because we can't disturb the soil of the bed of the river. But Greg has also been in contact with our representative from the DNR as to what we can and can't do in that area. So we are working on more of that plan.
So some of that work could take place on that cleanup weekend? Or
Yes.
that would be in between, or?
Yep, some of it could, a lot of the cleanup of the debris and like the bikes that you see along the river and the garbage, and that will be taken care of in a pretty good amount by the group on the 24th. I think our goal as a department is for the build up on the bridge. That's something that we'll have to get working with Public Works on getting and a contractor to get machinery in there.
Yeah.
That's not something that we have the ability to do with our equipment.
Is there a way that the machinery could be driven out to the bridge from the island side and reach down, pick up?
Yeah, the challenge is having the reach down to get that debris. That's what we're running into right now. That's why we have to get a contractor. We don't have anything that will reach. And then the weight of the equipment then becomes an issue for the bridge. So,
Well, it's a railroad bridge.
yeah, well,
It held significant weight.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we're working on it. We've done it before, I believe, Greg said.
Yeah, with some, a little bit smaller equipment, you know.
And then we're trying to figure out a way that maybe we could install something that would help to not have the buildup at the river. It's just so wide that we're not quite sure what that would be. But.
And you were speaking of so various locations now, it's quite visible that there are, I think they were physically installed pieces of wood that directed logs at one time, and now they look like they're deadheads, but really, and we could just
Old pier.
come and cut them down as someone's in the boat with a chainsaw, just zoom, buzz it down, and because they're boat hazards, which
Right. Yep, and we're working with the DNR on what we can and can't do for some of those
certainly you
areas.
don't drag it out, but you just you have the opportunity to attack as many of those as possible, as soon as possible.
Make it shorter.
Yeah, and so, timing, like I said, we have the whole year. Obviously, we'd like to have it cleaned up as soon as possible, but our staffs are all extremely busy right now with all the events that are going on, and the weather hasn't been very good to us, so it is definitely, we will get to it, but the fall is our best time when things wind down from the summer before the winter starts. So that's really when we do plan. The August 24th cleanup date works really well with our schedule, that we're going to try to really get it done when we have more availability, before we lose all of our part-time people who go back to school too. That would be nice.
Okay.
And then, just going through the last couple things, we have road maintenance, but Stewart Park pillars, we did meet out there with the contractor. They will be moved 6 feet to the east, and the contractor plans to be out there in 2 weeks to get those done. The water line is, that's what got brought up earlier, is we have issues with the water line and the pump for the kayak sculpture. That's why there is no water on it right now, but we are working on it. And then at 3M Park, we're working on the tennis court resurfacing. That was also a timing and staffing issue, but the contractor is ready to go as soon as we are. And then they're fixing, a tree took out our backstop on the north field. So that's got to be replaced. But we played on it, as youth have played on it without a backstop, and it seems to work okay still. So. And then just an update, I just wanted to give you the good news that Wausau is once again a bird city, high flyer status, thanks to our bird club who puts in that application every year. And I wanted to let you know that that was approved. That's all I've got.
Very good. And we do have river cleanup plan update on future agenda. Forestry specifications, what's that?
That was a request from Mr. Neal at the last meeting, knowing that we've had, with some different construction projects, some tree failures, plus
Street
also
trees.
what?
Street tree.
Street tree, yep. And then also with the storm damage and planting going forward and the other projects, we have a contractor working on helping us put together that specifications manual that we wanted to bring forward to kind of show you what's in the works and what we as staff will be working with going forward to try to minimize tree damage and or work with, if we have to take out a tree because it just won't work with whatever construction is happening, we have to do that, or ways of helping to save the trees during these projects.
Okay.
And our policy on, where we plant trees, how big they are when they're planted, where we would not want to plant trees in certain species that we...
And no lindens. You want to see an example of some really trashy linden trees, just go to 2nd Avenue, corner of where it goes into Marathon Park, that street, that 2nd Avenue. Garfield. In whatever wisdom it was, every one of them, linden, and it is a snowing of seeds. You don't see green grass anymore. And these trees, they got suckers all up and down the trunks. They're ugly. And they just stretch right down. They brush your hair as you're walking past. These trees are a mess, and they need to be trimmed.
Linden Tree Appreciation
Do
Society.
not plant any lindens on 1st Avenue. By God, that will not happen.
To look at those plans, make sure.
Not in my way. There'll be maples or lilacs or oaks.
Mr. Smith has a future agenda item.
Here, I'll pass these around, we'll keep them. take it and pass it around. This is an area in Reservoir Park. I've had a couple calls on it, and I'm just sharing this information. People have expressed concern about little Freddie running down here and falling on the rocks or climbing on the pipe. I don't really think there's anything we can do about it, but we might be able to cover ourselves if we put up some kind of sign that says restricted area, please keep out, or something like that. The lady that called me, I told her basically that, it's really your responsibility to supervise your kid, not the city's responsibility. I also pointed out to her that the park is bordered on 3 sides by cars, by a road, so we're certainly not going to shut the roads down, so in case somebody runs into the road and so on. So. But I think it would be better if we put some kind of sign up there that says restricted area, please keep out. You do have small children playing there. Sometimes their parents let them get out of sight and so on. This is on the downside, and it's considerably a distance away from where the playground equipment is. So it's not like you could get off the swings and step right onto the rocks. You'd have to physically go down there as a overt act. So but I'm just putting this out. If you think it needs action, do it. If not, then that's fine too.
Would you like to have this on the agenda, or do you want staff to look into?
Well, why don't they just have staff look into it? It probably doesn't need to go on the agenda. They'll make a decision. That's why I didn't know if it really was public works matter or parks matter.
It's actually a utility. It's an overflow pipe for the reservoir that's there. And so I had Scott Boers actually worked with some of the grant about that. We don't think it needs a fence, but the commission thought maybe it'd be best if we put one up. So
Put a fence up?
Something.
That was an idea. At first, we thought it was going to be steeper than what it is too, so definitely a fence along the upper part of it, but it's not as steep as what we originally thought it was.
Well, if you put a fence up, that's even better than a sign. But
Maybe yellow, then they'll see what they get.
But according to utilities, there is no harm to the pipe if the kids were to sit on it, right?
No.
They would just in case they get hurt, but they wouldn't hurt the pipe at all.
No, the complaint that we had was somebody said their kid was going to get stuck in there.
there's no accounting for people.
Yeah.
We have a next regular meeting date of August 5, and a possible special meeting for that. Hear a motion to adjourn. Mr. Smith?
Yes,
Second by Mr. Gisselman. Any objections? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.